right, everybody, the dreaded peer review section. I know that you hate peer review, and I know you think it doesn't do anything useful. I also hate peer review, and I have my suspicions. But hopefully, after a brief introduction, it will become useful for you. All right, let's just take a gander here. Let's talk about what it's not. This is not peer editing. That's usually what happens when there's some peer review. Is that one person, whoever's kind of like the more aggressive or more confident partner in the peer editing group, is like, you should change these things. You need a comma here. You need a semicolon here. This is choppy, and that kind of like editing stuff is not what this is about at all. On the one hand, I just think it's kind of a tricky social situation to navigate. On the other hand, this is going to be more than two hands here. On the other hand, sometimes you get really bad advice when you do that because none of us are well, we'll just be frank. None of you are experts here. And my expertise is questionable at best. There are people who are editors who do it for a living, and they're phenomenal. That's not us. This is not about surface level editing or fixing anything like that. Not even spelling mistakes. If you know, don't. That's not what it's about. This is also not for MLA formatting. It's not for going through and fixing someone's in-text citations or anything like. It's not about fixing a paper, right? Which is what we tend to think of here when we think of peer review. But it's not peer editing, it's peer review. We're reviewing. We're not fixing a paper, okay? We're not fixing a paper as though the purpose of a paper were to do something like just simply be correct, which it's not. The purpose of a paper is not to simply be correct. That's absurd. So, what do you do? Peer review is about two sort of things. The first is main ideas. And so as a peer reviewer, when you receive an essay, you want to identify the main ideas of that essay. And in so doing, what you'll do is you will reveal to the author, these are the things that stand out to me, and that's valuable information. So you do that first on a paragraph by paragraph level. This paragraph seems to me to answer this question, because a good paragraph should be an answer to a question, right? And so you go through and you do that paragraph by paragraph. Then you say, okay, my understanding of what the paper's main idea, the thesis, the overall goal is this, right? And then the third thing that you're looking for is, do you go like cross-eyed and stop reading at any point? That's another valuable piece of information. If you can say like, hey, I kind of quit reading like around this section, or I realized I had stopped reading and was like, my mind wandered here. If you can identify those spots for the author, and conversely, if they can identify those spots for you, then the author knows where to look for, like, maybe I've lost track of things. Maybe I need to do some heavier revising. Maybe I need to reduce the overall word count in this section. I can do that sort of local clarity revising of these sentences. Maybe I've got a whole paragraph that just needs to get tossed out. Or maybe I need to connect some of these ideas. It's generally a trouble spot, though. When you get to the point where people fall asleep in the paper, that's the trouble spot. You don't want that to be there at all. So that's the other thing you can do is ask clarifying questions. So if you've got a source and it's not clear how that source relates to the overall point, that's a question you would ask. Like, I'm not sure. Can you explain to me how this source, this thing that you're quoting, or this paraphrase, or this block quote, how does this relate to your overall point? Because it's not clear to me. Or if you see two paragraphs that are really similar to one another, you can say like, okay, how come these are different paragraphs? Or it feels like you've made this point before. Can you explain to me how it's different? Or if there's a point you don't understand at all, you can say like, hey, I don't get this part. Can you explain it to me? Those clarifying questions are extremely useful. Again, not because as the author you want to, if you get asked one of these clarifying questions, you don't want to respond by saying like, oh, well, I just have a bad reader, or well, oh, they just don't get it, right? Or it's too far beyond them. No, if someone has a clarifying question, that means that you have failed to communicate effectively that which you seek to communicate, right? And it could be that another reader would have gotten it, maybe so, but we're ideally writing for a broad audience here. So that's just letting you know, here's a point where I need to maybe focus some of my attention. It's not that the person who is reading your paper knows more than you. It's not that they are better than you at writing or better at you at making arguments or anything like that. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. That's not the point. The point is you've got an audience a real audience who you can sample to say like, okay, does this work or not? Do I need to improve this or not? And if they are totally clear, they say like, this paragraph answers this question. And you're like, yes, that is the question that I wanted to answer. You say, this paper seems to be about this. You're like, yes, that is what this paper's about. Then bully for you. You didn't get great feedback in that case, but great. But if they do have a question like, wait, what does this mean? Or hold on, I'm lost. That's extremely valuable information, because if somebody who is reading just your paper, like that they're just reading your one paper, can get confused or lost in a section, think about me sitting down at the end of the semester to grade your final papers and going through, and I've got, hundreds of them, right? It's going to be pretty easy for me to get lost too. So you want to be as clear as possible. You want to make sure you're getting your point across. Okay. So finally, it gives you a few other valuable pieces of information. It's not only about improving your partner's paper, right? Yes, you want to help them, but this is kind of a quid pro quo thing where they're helping you, so you're helping them, right? But it tells you what it's like to read an essay cold. That's information that you get as the peer reviewer, because I'm going to read your essay cold. And so you might think that everything's abundantly clear, and then you pick up this essay to read it, and you're like, what is this? I have all these questions. This seems confusing to me. And if the author of that paper is like, how do you have these questions? It's so obvious. And then through conversation, you do arrive at like, oh, this does make sense now. You arrive at that place of coherence. Then you get that sense of what it's like to go from not understanding to understanding. But when I pick up an essay cold, I don't have you to ask questions, right? I can't like email you, or I'm not going to anyway, email you and be like, can you clarify this point for me? All I have is the essay. So you get a sense of what it's like to read an essay when in a vacuum, it's only the essay. And then you look at the questions that were asked about your specific essay, and that lets you know where to focus. I also want you to ask this question while you're doing the peer review. What kind of essay do you hope to read, right? If you're trading with someone, what kind of essay do you wish that you'd gotten? And that also tells you about how you value essays, what you think of as good or decent, and that can guide, your own writing. If it's a kind of essay you would like to read, well, odds are it might be the kind of essay that I like to read as well. So your general instructions, it doesn't matter if it's in a different class period or not. Find a peer review partner who has read an essay or has written an essay for my class as well. Trade essays with them, and then go through the steps laid out here. The Google form is basically just like is this helpful or not Google form. It's pretty simple this week. But yeah, that's it. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you when I see you.